Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Seattle, Washington, at the Climate Pledge Arena with 16,000 fans in attendance. This is wait. I'm just getting news that Sammy Black has officially entered the parking lot and is about to enter the arena when she is caught off guard. There's a car sitting right in front of the arena doors with its trunk wide open and a dozen or so base bats inside. Sammy looks weirded out and confused, even a little concerned. But she does what every general manager has to do, and she shakes it off and enters the building. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to RPW presents Ultimate Sacrifice. And here we have our first matchup of the evening, Cam Awesome versus Big Q versus Blake Williams in a triple threat. The winner will receive a grand prize on Envy next week. First off, we have Cam Awesome coming down to the ring with Avenged Sevenfold's Nightmare blaring to the rafters. He makes himself home in the ring as Big Q comes out with a thunderous roar to BZ Badasses and Kill Murphy's Space Mountain. And last but not least, representing Hustle Brand and Hustle Cortel, walking down to the ring with Awaken Alive by Skilling announcing his presence, we have Blake Williams. This match gets going quickly as Cam Awesome and Williams began trading punches while Big Q rolls out of the ring. William gains the upper hand with a quick spinning back fist, but Cam stumbles back. Williams continues with an uppercut and then a huge suplex to the mat. Big Q sees his opportunity and slides in the ring and begins to stomp on Williams before he can get back to his feet. Q then drops a quick elbow drop on Cam, but gets back to his feet just as Williams does. The two begin to trade blows until Williams gains control and nails Big Q with a huge jumping knee. Q stumbles back while Williams grabs his arm and slings him to the corner. Williams follows up with a huge splash. Williams turns around after impact, only to catch Cam flying straight at him with a splash of his own. Williams dodges out of the way at the last second. Cam lands on Big Q, but out of nowhere, Q catches Cam and Taz plexes him over the top rope to the outside. Cam just crashes to the floor on ringside. Q and Williams go back at it, each trading punches and slaps until Williams hits a huge super kick on Q that dazes him. Williams calls for the drop of righteousness, but Q drops to a knee, and Cam Awesome comes out of nowhere, springboarding off the top rope from the outside with a huge flying clothesline. Williams is taken off his feet and lands on his back before rolling to his stomach. Cam spins around and goes for a curb stomp, but Williams slides out of the way, and Big Q catches him with a huge lariat. Cam just collapses to the mat, while Williams gets back to his feet and goes to attack Big Q, but Q dodges out of the way. Q grabs Williams and hits a huge Terraplex. Williams crashes onto Cam and then rolls all the way out to the ring from the momentum. Q calls to the crowd, "I'm gonna win the Royal Rumble!" as he points to the top rope, ascends to it, and leaps up with a giant frog splash, landing directly on Cam's midsection. Q lifts up the leg for the cover. The 1, 2, 3. Your winner of this big prize is Big Q. The following matchup is for the RPW United States Championship. First coming to the ring, we have, welcomed by the artist known as The Hunter and his song Love and Death, we have the Hunter himself, Levi Bliss. And then next up we have a monster himself, the RPW United States Champion, being welcomed by Skillet's monster, Braden Bliss. The match begins with the brothers shaking hands and hugging. Goodwill between these two brothers, and we are going to see what kind of match they can dig deep from inside. The two smile and begin to go on the offense right away. Braden goes for a super kick, but Levi sidesteps it. Levi goes for a clothesline himself, but Braden dodges it easily. Braden is the first one that lands a strike when he starts a chop trade-off where each man gives the hardest blows. 3 strikes in each, and Braden goes for a spinning forearm, but Levi blocks it and lands a devastating LKO out of nowhere. Braden crushes to the mat, and Levi goes for the cover. 1, 2, Braden kicks out, and Levi shakes his head, knowing it's not going to be that easy. Levi quickly gets up and lifts Braden to his feet. Levi goes for a suplex, but Braden blocks it and slings Levi into the ropes. Levi rebounds off the ropes and right into a claymore from Braden that nearly takes his head off. Levi collapses to the mat, and Braden goes to the cover. 1, 2, Levi kicks out. Braden just smiles and laughs. He knows it's going to take more than this. Braden gets to his feet and drags Levi back to a vertical basis. Levi's eyes are glossed over, and Braden smiles and goes for an LKO of his own. Levi, knowing his own finisher as well, easily blocks it and pushes Braden away. Braden turns around only to eat a spear from Levi, Braden's own finisher. Braden crashes on the mat. Levi crawls over. 1, 2. Braden kicks out. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen. Levi slams his hands on the mat in frustration. He begins to think, what does he have to do to finish his brother off? What does he have to do to get his hands on this championship? Levi looks at Braden, trying to get up, and he begins to set up a super kick, but this isn't just a normal super kick. Oh my God, this is the Showtime super kick. Braden slowly rises up, and Levi goes to strike, but Braden ducks. Levi spins back around and manages to kick Braden with a back elbow. Levi grabs Braden and slings him in the corner and follows up with a body splash, but Braden manages to slide out of the corner at the last second. Levi crashes into the corner. Braden quickly hits the ropes and rebounds. Braden is aimed directly at Levi as he stumbles out of the corner. What's Levi gonna do? Braden goes for a spear and Levi leapfrogs it. Braden stumbles but catches himself, only dropping down to a knee. He gets back to a vertical basis, and Levi goes for an LKO, but Braden slips free and pushes him away. Levi quickly turns around to strike again, but Braden's there. Braden rips a Showtime super kick through the air and connects with Levi's jaw. Levi collapses to the mat. Braden quickly makes the cover. 1, 2, 3! Your winner, and still RPW United States Champion, the Monster, Braden Bliss. The ref holds Braden's arms up in the air, and Braden stands in victory for a moment. He hugs the title, and then he goes to check on his brother. He lifts Levi up, and the two stand each other, staring at each other, and then they embrace. The two brothers hug, and the crowd erupts. They pose with the title in between them as we fade on to our next match. Ladies and gentlemen, our next matchup is a Poison Mist match. For those who do not know what a Poison Mist match is, where the only objective is to spray a poison mist into your opponent's face as the only way to win the match. First up, we have Cat Knight coming down to the ring to Crystal Method's "Do You Trip Like I Do" as it echoes throughout the arena. Moments later, Hailstorm's "Freak Like Me" sounds off thunderously as Gypsy makes her way down to the ring. Once in the ring, the action starts as the two begin to brawl right away. Knight gets the upper hand and begins to continue with a series of strikes until Gypsy dodges it and replies with a headbutt that rocks Knight. Gypsy seizes the opportunity and spits a green mist at Knight, but Knight dodges out of the way and slides out to the ring to ringside. Gypsy wipes her mouth and chases after Knight. Gypsy slides out of the ring and right into an attack by Knight, who catches her with a kick and slings her into the barricade. Gypsy hits hard. Knight grabs her throat and spits a purple mist right at Gypsy, but Gypsy dodges at the last second, and the entire front row, which is composed of about a dozen people, get caught right in the face by a purple mist. Suddenly, the entire crowd that was hit just collapses in sleep. It's not known, ladies and gentlemen, very widely, but purple mist does put your opponent to sleep. Gypsy takes off to the other side of the ring, and Cat Knight follows her. Knight manages to attack Gypsy from behind, right near the announcer table. Gypsy crashes onto it, and Knight begins to hit a series of lefts and rights. Gypsy falls back on the table, and Knight continues it by tossing her all the way on and climbs on top. Knight signals to the crowd for a power bomb for on top of the announcer table, but Gypsy counters and strikes with a headbutt and then snap DDTs her, driving her straight through the table. Both women are laying in a heap of wood. They're going to have to rebuild that announcer table before the next match. It's going to take some time, ladies and gentlemen. But minutes later, Gypsy gets back to her feet, and she grabs Knight and goes for a Gypsy drop. They're devastating pump handle slam, but Knight spits blue mist in the air, and Gypsy dodges back and pushes Knight's away. Knight begins to laugh as she gets back to her feet, but Gypsy comes out of nowhere and snaps Knight's body to the ground with a tarot card, her sick and twisted neck breaker. The crowd erupts as Gypsy gets back to her feet and screams to the crowd in a primal roar. She reaches down and grabs Knight by the hair, lifting her up. She smiles and spits black mist right in Cat Knight's face. Cat Knight begins to scream in pain and shakes violently on the ground. And the bell rings. Your winner, Gypsy Freak. Gypsy smiles to the crowd as the poison mist stains her face as she makes her way to the back. About a dozen referees attend to Knight, trying to wash the mist out of her eyes. And it's just devastating. It might be some time before she can see again. Ladies and gentlemen, some of these mists have mystical abilities, and some can even cause death. I'm not 100% sure what black mist does, but I'm guaranteeing you it is painful.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who I am, why are you even here? My name is Beezy Badass. I go by many names and monikers, but right now, the most important is the CEO of Revolution Promo Wrestling. And I'm here to introduce you to our summer schedule. Now, we're going to skip over some things like episodes of Envy, but we're going to check out some of the biggest events we got coming up. First up, in just a couple weeks, the brainchild of Justin Nix returns when Fight Night returns under the RPW umbrella live in St. Louis, Missouri. And I have it on good authority that a second episode is also in the works for the following month. Then, since I can't pop out on Envy, I created my own new show, The Lion's Den. Yours truly, uncensored, uncut, with some of the biggest names in RPW today and past. Stay tuned for the updates on the first episode, and the guest is going to be announced in the coming weeks. Then next, live from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, a fan favorite, voted the favorite event in RPW season 2 years in a row. The World Is Yours returns live in Vegas. That is your next RPW pay-per-view. And the qualifying matches, well, we got some surprises for you guys. But officially, the qualifying matches begin on Envy. And finally, we can't have a super hot summer here in RPW without the second biggest event of the entire season. Inferno touches down in Chirac, Chicago, Illinois, live at Wrigley Stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's about to be one hot summer in RPW. As always, the hustle continues. Long live the revolution. Let go.
This match is for the RPW Tag Team Championships. First down to the ring, we have the champions themselves, the Red Ed Connection. Tyler Red grooving to easy freestyle by 6 seconds, and Ed Coop following right after with the Terminator by the man known as Armstrong. Following them, we have Hustle Cartel representatives, Australia, grooving to Hustle Hood with a hood up and chains wrapped around his hands. Then we have the self-dubbed Pope of the cartel, the Gentleman, Pat Turner, coming down to Eminem's, DMX's, and Obi Trice's Go to Sleep. The action begins with Ed and Australia as they lock up, but Australia gains control right off the bat and tosses Ed into the ropes. Australia goes for a roundhouse kick, but Ed stops and wags his finger. No, 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 at Australia. This annoys Australia, who begins to fire off strikes at Ed, but Ed dodges a few until he gets caught with a fake punch and an actual kick to the gut. Australia grabs him and slings him to a neutral corner. Australia goes for a follow-up with an elbow, but Ed dodges out of the way and begins to rain strikes on Australia's midsection. Ed only gets a few strikes in until Australia gets a quick throat chop to Ed. Ed grabs his throat and moves away from Australia. Australia takes this moment to strike Ed with a big boot, dropping to the mat. Pat reaches out his hand for a tag, but Australia ignores it and begins to attack Ed. Ed comes back with a strike to the midsection and then a headbutt to Australia. He follows up with a short strike DDT. Australia snaps the mat and Ed goes for the tag. Tyler Red gets tagged in. Ed and Red lift Australia up and sling him to the ropes. Australia rebounds and eats a super kick from Ed. Australia is dazed on his feet, and then Red comes out of nowhere with a sick running neckbreaker from the other side. Australia slams to the mat, and Red goes for the cover. 1, 2. Australia kicks out. Red is a little frustrated, but he gets back up and lifts Australia up. And he goes for another tag by dragging Australia to the corner. But Australia out of nowhere snaps in the Snail Australia Snap, which is a dragon sleeper, and just has it completely locked in on Tyler Red. Red struggles to get free, and the pair begin to roll around the mat, back and forth. But as Red is struggling, Australia manages to get closer to his own corner, the whole time just staring right at Pat Turner. They roll closer and closer and closer until Pat reaches out and tags himself in. What is he doing? Australia looks shocked and just straight out pissed off, yelling, "What are you doing, you damn cunt?" Like, what the fuck? Australia is told to get out of the ring. Pat gets in and begins to stomp on Red, and Australia is just shocked. He's just standing at the ringside, just flabbergasted. Pat just assaults Tyler Red with a few kicks and then goes for a pin. 1, 2. Red easily kicks out. Pat gets up and drags Red to his feet. Pat lifts up for a huge blue blood bomb, but Red hits a hurricane out of nowhere, sending Pat across the ring. Australia gets back on his apron, still pissed, but wanting to finish the match. Both men get to their feet and begin a strike fest. Pat gets off a long kick strike, and Red stumbles back a little bit. Pat uses an elbow quickly to knock Ed right off the apron and turns his attention back to Tyler Red. Pat goes to charge at Red, but Red lifts him up and slams Pat down to the mat with a flat jack. Red manages to roll over his corner, but Ed isn't there. Ed is on the floor. He got knocked off the apron by an elbow just a second ago. Pat reaches up from the mat to tag in Australia, but what's this? Australia drops off the apron and gives Pat the finger, calls him a cunt, and walks off and just walks straight backstage without even looking. Pat looks shocked and then pissed. He slowly gets to his feet, but then he realizes he's in the middle of a match, and he goes to focus back on on Red, and suddenly out of nowhere, Ed Coop comes out of nowhere with a huge bullseye knee, hitting Pat right in the jaw, knocking him down to the mat. Seconds later, Tyler Red leaps off the top rope with a red dawn, a coup de grace, snapping has to be a few ribs of Pat Turner. Red slams down on him and quickly makes the cover. 1, 2, 3. Red Ed Connection retain the RPW Tag Team Championships, and we don't know what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. What are the ramifications of what just happened gonna be on Envy? We don't know, ladies and gentlemen. This is unprecedented. We're gonna see a lot of backlash from this, ladies and gentlemen.
The following match is for the RPW Intercontinental Championship, and it is a last man standing match. Troy Mason makes his way down the ring to Really Got It by Jir Aru. He gets into the center of the ring, and out of nowhere, Adam slides in the ring and begins to just attack him, and the two men begin to brawl in the middle of the ring. The ref rings the bell, and we are on to our co-main event of the evening. Each man belt each other with a blend of strikes and chops. Mason manages to win the big first strike with a spinning back fist that sends Adams reeling. Mason follows up by slinging him into the ropes, but Adams leaps up while coming off the ropes and catches Mason with a flying clothesline. Mason goes down, and Adams continues his assault with a fury of fist to Mason's skull. Adam tilts to the crowd and then responds with rollers. He lifts Mason up to his feet and slams him back with a huge power slam. Adams gets back up and looks around the ring. He smiles, and then he kicks and pushes Mason out of the ring. I wonder what he's doing here, ladies and gentlemen. Adams then slides out of the ring and grabs Mason off the ground. He lifts him up for a power slam, but Adams begins to charge at the ring steps. Oh my God, Adams drives Mason into the top of the ring steps with a power slam. Mason hits hard, and you see the impact on his face. Adams lifts Mason back up where he landed, and then rushes all the way back around the ring, and then power slams Mason on the other set of stairs. Mason hits hard again and yells out of pain. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen. Shane Adams is a beast, ladies and gentlemen. Shane Adams then lifts him up again for a second time where he landed on the stairs, and then he just simply power slams him on the cement floor, ladies and gentlemen. That was crazy. Adams uses the ring to get to his feet while he tells the ref to count. The ref begins to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mason manages to get back to his feet, and Adams begins to charge at him. But Mason hits a drop toe hold, leading Adams to land throat first on the barricade. Mason bought himself a few moments. He goes over to the announcer table and grabs a chair right next to the just recently brand new built announcer table. A brand new was just built because it was just destroyed just a few matches ago. Adams is still laying on the barricade, and Mason begins to drive a steel chair into his back again and again. Adams doesn't drop to the floor. He is hanging on the barricade, barely. Mason repeats himself over 8 times until Adams finally collapses on the mat. Mason walks away and clears away the brand new announcer table. He clears everything off. Come on, we just got that announcer table back. The Spanish announcers won't have any place else to sit. We don't have any more extra tables. He grabs Adam before the ref can begin the count. Too far. I think he gets into about a 2 count before Mason tosses Adam on top of the announcer table and climbs on top of the adjacent table. Mason calls to the crowd and roars to them, and then he begins to run and leap off. Mason crashes down on Adams with a huge jumping senton, sending both men through the table. We don't have any more tables, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's it for the Spanish announce team. There's nowhere left for them to call the rest of the evening's action. This is horrible. The crowd erupts, and the ref begins his count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mason gets back to his feet and stumbles to the ring. He begins to search underneath it and look for something. 6, 7. Adams managed to get to his feet by holding onto a chair. The ref raves off the count, and Adams drops into the announcer's chair, trying to get some kind of rest before this match continues. Mason looks under the ring and finds a ladder, a table, and a bag of tacks. He tosses the bag of tacks aside and slides in the ladder and the table. He slides in and he sets up the ladder and the table itself. He sets them next to each other, and then he returns to ringside where Adams is still dazed from breaking the ref's count. Adams quickly hits a strike to the gut and then slings Mason in the barricade. Mason snaps full weight into it, and Adam then grabs him and slings him to the ring. Adams follows him, but both men manage to get to vertical bases quickly and begin to trade blows. Mason hits a surprise headbutt, sending Adams into a daze. Mason pulls him close and lifts him up, and then slams him down through the table with an F5. Oh my God! Oh my God! Adams crashes straight to the mat through the wood and just lays there. Mason is filled with adrenaline and bounces back up. He drags Adams back to his feet and then yells to the crowd one more time before the ref can even start a 1 count. Mason then lifts Adams up, but Adams comes to life and slides off Mason's shoulders. Adams spins Mason around and then strikes with a European uppercut. Mason stumbles. Adams grabs him and pulls him in for a devastating ripcord knee. Mason is stunned and then falls motionless right on to Shane Adams' shoulders. He pulls him up. He loads him on his shoulders, and then he begins to climb up the ladder? What is Adams doing? Oh my God, what is Adams doing? He climbs up the ladder all the way top. He roars to the crowd, and then he leaps off and strikes a huge shade killer to Mason. Oh my God, both men slammed to the mat. Well, Mason just looks like a dead body in the ring. Adams himself barely looks alive, and the ref begins the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Adams sits up and rolls to the ropes. 8. Adams begins to lift himself up, and Mason begins to stir. 9. Adams gets to his feet while Mason's looking up. He's lifting himself up, and then passes back out. 10. The referee rings the bell, and Adams drops to his knees in exhaustion. Adams has successfully retained his Intercontinental Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, that was one hell of a last man standing match, and I cannot wait for the next time these two men face off. It will be another Titan on Titan clash.
The following match is the main event of RPW's Ultimate Sacrifice, and it is for the RPW World Championship, and it is an Ultimate Sacrifice match, which means there are 5 contestants, a 20-minute time limit. The last person to get a pin within that 20 minutes walks out the brand new world champion. First down, we have the Jackal coming down to Downtown Demolition, followed by Noah Stone with the Throne by Bring Me the Horizon. Then we have the Southern Heart making her way down to the Southern Pride known as Tough by Kelly Pickler. Then we have Mox coming out to the fan favorite song, Welcome to the Jungle. And finally, we have the RPW World Champion herself, Sherry Kay, coming down to Bitch from the Soul. We start off at a 20-minute time limit. The timer begins at 20 minutes, and the match starts out with a huge brawl. Sherry Kay and Mox strike it up while Bailey and Jackal trade chops. Stone slides out of the ring, and while he says he just likes to watch, the two pairs begin to brawl as he walks around the ring and joins the announce team on commentary as the rest brawl. Sherry gets the upper hand real quick, and with a rally of slaps to Mox's face and chest, she follows up with a combo jab and left hook and a spike DDT to the mat. Jackal and Bailey are trading blows until Bailey yells, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" Jackal looks confused and steps back. Bailey smiles and says, "Bless your heart," before hitting a huge firearm to Jackal's jaw, causing him to stumble back into the arms of Sherry, who lifts Jackal up for a German suplex, but Jackal struggles free and lands in the arms of Bailey, who belly-to-belly suplexes him over the top rope to the outside. Jackal crashes to the mat, and Sherry and Bailey have a standoff. They shake hands, woman to woman, and begin to size each other up as they go to trade strikes until Bailey yells stop, but Sherry Kay doesn't listen and fires off a huge headbutt. Bailey stumbles back into the corner with pain. Mox comes out of nowhere and spins Sherry around and fires up uppercut after uppercut after uppercut until Sherry drops the mat. Moments pass. 15 minutes remaining. Mox hits a huge paradigm shift on Jackal and goes for the cover. 1, 2, but Bailey breaks it up and lifts Mox up and tosses him in the corner. Bailey follows up with a huge knee and then a bulldog out of the corner. Mox is dazed and attempts to get to his feet, but Bailey hits the ropes and rebounds and snaps a huge wild horse that decapitates Mox. Bailey goes to the cover. 1, 2, 3. Bailey is the first person to score a pinfall in this match and is now your current champion. She gets up and begins to celebrate, only eat a super kick from Jackal. She begins to stumble back into the path of Sherry Kay, who strikes with a break the bank. A black mass straight to Bailey's skull. She collapses to the mat. Sherry Kay and Jackal are now staring each other down before launching into a series of strikes and kicks on each other until Jackal catches a kick and lifts Sherry up for a spinning powerbomb and then holds her down on the mat after collision for 1, 2, 3. Our second pinfall, ladies and gentlemen. Your current champion is the Jackal. Jackal rolls Sherry out of the ring and attempts to keep the ring for himself in a king of the mountain sort of situation. Moments pass. 10 minutes remaining. Stone slides back in the ring just as Jackal hits a huge Jackal Despair to Bailey and goes for the cover. 1. Stone breaks it up and tosses Jackal out of the ring and makes the cover himself. 1, 2, 3. Your new champion, Noah Stone. But Noah Stone begins to celebrate when he's caught by Sherry Kay with a couple chops and then a huge cash out, a discus clothesline. Stone collapses to the mat and Sherry goes to the cover. 1, 2, 3. Sherry Kay regains the championship and she is now your current champion. By this time, Bailey gets back to her feet and catches Sherry with a clothesline. Then a running forearm. Bailey kicks Sherry in the gut and rebounds off the ropes with a wild horse, which hits her straight between the eyes. Sherry crashes to the mat, and Bailey goes for the cover, but Mox picks her up and begins to strike with a brutal fury. Moments pass. 6 minutes remaining. Mox lifts Bailey up and sets up for another paradigm shift, but Stone pulls her away and goes for a roll-up. 1, 2. Mox breaks it up, and Stone and Mox get up. And the two go nose to nose, yelling at each other. The two men take a second and say all fair in love and war. And then Mox points out something behind Stone. Stone turns around. No one's there. Mox rolls Stone up for a schoolboy. 1, 2, 3. Mox is your new champion. Oh my God. What did you just do to Stone? Stone is pissed and he begins to yelling at Mox. And Mox turns around to escape the ring when Sherry Kay is standing right behind him. Mox goes to strike, but Sherry Kay blocks it, and Stone helps his friend out by striking Sherry Kay from behind him. Mox then follows up with another strike. Before we know it, both men are double teaming Sherry with strikes left and right. Sherry stumbles back in the ring, and then Stone rolls Mox up with a schoolboy. 1, 2, 3. Oh, your current champion, Noah Stone. Noah pulled a fast one. Mox gets up quickly and goes to get into Stone's face, but out of nowhere, Jackal hits a huge Jackal Despair that sends Mox holding his gut to the ground and rolling freely on the mat and then finally out of it. Oh my God. Jackal gets back to up to his feet, but then eats a drive-by kick from Stone that drops the man where he stood. Moments pass. 1 minute remaining. Sherry Kay and Stone are trading blows when Bailey comes out of nowhere with a Supergirl punch that causes Stone to spin his boots. Jackal catches Bailey with an elbow strike seconds later after she lands, and then Jackal hits a huge Jackal Despair into Sherry Kay and Noah Stone. Stone hits the mat first and Sherry Kay drops right on top of him. Jackal rolls off out of the way and then goes for the cover, but Moxley slams into Jackal's chest with an elbow drop from the top rope. Sherry Kay is laying on the Stone. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this action is just going so fast. I myself am getting jittery. But Sherry Kay has landed on Noah Stone, and the ref begins to count. 1, 2, 3. What? Sherry K is your new current champion. 30 seconds remaining. Moxley goes for a cover on Jackal, but Bayley breaks it up with a huge wild horse once again to the back of the head, knocking him clean out of the ring and out of the match. Bayley goes for the cover. 1, 2, but Jackal kicks out. Both Noah Stone and Sherry K are both out. Moxley is out outside the ring. Bayley is now trying desperately to lock in something. She tries something new and locks in what she calls the Rings of Texas, a Rings of Saturn variation on Jackal, and she begins to wrench back harder as Jackal refuses to tap out. He's wrenching back and forth, and he's just screaming. And then suddenly the bell rings. The match is over. Bayley releases the hold. What happened? Your winner, and still RPW World Champion, Sherry K. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, Sherry K was the last one to get the cover before Jackal could submit. That means she retains the title. She beat all odds and got out of the match by the skin of her teeth. Oh my God, Sherry K is laying there. She finally is waking up and realizing what happened and hears her music, but her music cuts. Suddenly, Sammy Black makes her way down the ring, enters the ring and hands the championship to Sherry K as she gets to her feet. Sherry K is still dazed, but the crowd erupts as Sherry K holds the championship high and her music hits. She's celebrating and posing in the crowd when suddenly the music just cuts. Everything goes silent and the arena goes black, and suddenly a single light hits the entranceway, and suddenly a shopping cart filled with baseball bats, just dozens upon dozens, gets pushed out by some random entity through the entranceway, down the ramp, and all the way to the ring, and then it hits and all the bats just explode all over the place. Sherry K looks confused and Sammy Black looks concerned, like she knows what this is, ladies and gentlemen, like she knows what this marks. What could this be? We don't know, but we should find out sometime soon, maybe potentially on Envy this week. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Bell to Bell.